I hope this happens for every time.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Books and Betches. Not to be confused with Books and
Benches.
You've said benches before.
Listen,
I'm Kristen, and with me I have
Berica.
and Maria.
Okay,
I don't know.
giving up. Erica, did you hear about the big seaweed blob that's moving towards Florida?
I'm concerned about what's going to happen when it hits the land.
Yeah,
ocean.
so for anybody who doesn't know, there's a big, giant seaweed blob twice the size of the United States of America moving.
What?
It's
that big?
No,
Yeah.
it's not. It's not twice as the size
Or
of
is
America.
the size of the United States.
No, it's not.
Are you joking? Did you look it up?
Oh, wait, it is.
Is it twice the size or the size?
Twice the width of the U.S. is heading towards Florida.
So next time you want to give me shit, maybe look it up.
You can see it from
What?
space.
Yeah.
You can see it from space.
So there's a seaweed blob.
Where did this come from?
Twice the
the
size
ocean,
of America.
the scariest place on the planet.
Where did
headed-
it come from? Why has this never happened before?
Headed towards Florida. The best
Since the
place ever.
internet, this has never happened.
Maybe.
So maybe 20 years.
Maybe.
My
I
lifetime.
want to see if I can find
What if
the
we had
picture.
never heard of it? So I just wanted to hear your thoughts.
What are they going to do with all this fucking seaweed?
That's what we don't know. There's also ecosystems within
It's
the
like a whole
seaweed.
ecosystem in there.
They gotta pack it up and throw it back in.
Throw it back in where?
I don't know, somewhere far out to sea.
I want to see if I can find the freaking
Pack it into what?
I don't know.
Tell me your thoughts.
The U.S.
on-
Coast Guard's got to figure it the fuck out.
So Erica,
They
if
got to
you were-
protect
Is
the
this
coast.
it? Is all of this it?
Erica, if you were swimming in the ocean and you found yourself
In
entangled
the middle of,
yes,
Like
you
Lara
would never
Croft.
get out of it.
Lara
You would
Croft
never get
level.
out of it.
I'm
You
sure-
can't swim the length of the United States twice.
Well, that's true, but let's say like somebody can come get you and take you out of it, but you have to be in it for 5 minutes, like a fear factor thing.
Yeah, I could do Fear Factor.
10 minutes of laying in a wad of seaweed.
I would die, but like I
You wouldn't die.
for money. I
Panic
would do it.
attacks. Yeah, I would be like, look, I just think about everything that's in there. What would touch me?
Oh, I don't know. Is there stuff?
Every
in there?
time I'm in the ocean and I
Ecosystems.
feel a little bit of seaweed, I'm like, ah! It's
I
something.
just don't like how it feels on
Okay,
me.
well, that has nothing.
Also, you know what? I have PTSD. I get a lot. I am like a honing beacon for a jellyfish. I get
I like
stung.
jellyfish.
Have you
I
been
get
stung
stung.
before?
I've gotten stung 100 times.
I have never been stung.
One time I got stung 12 times at once because I was wearing a surfer
12
shirt and it went
times?
underneath my shirt and it stung me all around in Ocean City, Maryland.
I
Someone pee on you?
No, I
no,
cried.
it's a myth.
I know it's a myth, but
It's not a myth. It's warm water helps. So warm.
So
pee.
like there was one time it like wrapped around my leg, so I had like
That's horrible.
the
no
tentacle.
wonder the
saw
tentacle
the
guy wasn't
thing.
your favorite in Creature Cafe.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't like jellyfish.
This is not what the book we're talking
That's what I
about
was gonna
today.
say. So this has nothing to do with the book that we're talking, but I had to ask
just current events.
because it is current. Yes. So the book.
Not when this comes out. Though.
I probably will put it all on Patreon.
So this is a book podcast. We swear, we spoil, we talk about sex. But this book is mostly, we're going to be spoiling a lot. So if you haven't read it by now, you're probably not going to read it. What year did this come out?
in the freaking 70s.
No way.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Okay, so the book we're talking about is Ender's Game by...
It was for oh my god, his name is so fucking long. Orson Scott Card.
Yeah, okay.
This was first published in 1985.
They must have rewrote it.
However,
Yeah.
it was a short story first in the 70s.
Oh, interesting. There's things... Okay, the reason I wanted to do Ender's Game, this was my idea, was because I follow a YouTuber, Haley Pham. She wasn't a book talker, but she's kind of... I mean, a booktuber, but she's kind of becoming one. And she did an episode of like reading all of my husband's favorite books. And I thought that was a really good idea and she didn't like most of them, but Ender's Game she liked a lot. And I was like, you know what? If she liked it, maybe I'll try it because... Everybody talks about Ender's Game when we come to science fiction. Everybody's like,
This
oh,
is my first time hearing about it.
no way.
Damn. Yep.
That's crazy.
That is crazy.
I've heard of it a lot.
I have never
Ender's
heard of it.
Game is like the thing everybody talked about when if you say you're into science fiction, they assume that you've read Ender's Game.
Yeah, it's like the OG of OGs.
Never heard of it.
Admittedly, I had never read it, never knew anything about it, and I didn't know anything about the author going into it. Now I know that the author is kind of problematic, very religious, has a lot of shitty views, and I just want to say at the top of this that I do not... I've learned this after reading this book.
I didn't know until after.
Until we started recording this podcast, I had no idea about anything about this author, and I want to say that at the top, that we do not support this man in any way, shape, or form, but I still want to talk about this book.
Yeah. Fuck that guy.
Because Ender's Game is really a staple in science fiction. There's a movie out. Erica, I know you only watched the movie. You didn't read the book, which is bullshit because I read every book this week.
To be fair, I thought
To be
that this
fair?
was our movie.
No, you knew it wasn't.
I didn't.
Okay.
Yes, you did,
You
because
knew.
you were the one that put the poll on Instagram for 50 Shades of Grey.
I know. I realized that.
Late.
So I realized that at 10 o'clock when I started the movie.
Okay, fair enough.
Roger that. Okay.
Okay,
When
well,
I texted you guys, I'm watching Ender's Game thinking like I'm doing the right thing here.
So
and then I
Maria-
responded,
and
hey,
then you
50
being
Shades of
like
Grey,
50 Shades,
which
and
reminded
I-
her
and
that she had to
then-
watch it.
And then I was
Yeah.
like, oh fuck, I did that poll.
We all did
were supposed
bad.
to, yeah.
No,
I
I
fucked
did
up.
fine.
yeah.
I fucked up.
So
I had a bad week.
you just read it, and I read it and watched the movie. So I think this is great.
I
This is
watched the
good.
movie.
So we
It's
can
not
talk-
like, and no, you know what? I watched the movie and I watched several reviews of somebody talking about the book.
Okay, great.
So-
You know
So
exactly
you have
what
other
happened.
people's opinions that you could bring to the
Yes.
table today. Thank God.
Nice.
I think it's good because I could tell you everything that's completely different from the book to the movie, and there's a lot and big things too.
Yeah, they changed a lot in the movie.
Yeah, the kid is like 12 throughout the whole movie, so I think that is a big
But
dynamic.
he started younger.
He didn't start at 6,
I will say, there's a whole thing at the
Unless
end
I
of the
missed it.
audiobook. What?
unless I missed it. But
Maybe.
Sorry, go on.
There's a whole thing at the end of the audiobook on Scribd where it's him, the author, talking about how this became a thing, and
Yeah.
he discusses his choices on the film side and how when the film rights were being sold, he was adamant that he had to be young. He had to be a 6-year-old.
He can't because they don't talk like that.
So the way, because the kids were geniuses. Like, again,
Right,
we're gonna get into
still,
this,
yeah.
but he was very adamant on every contract he received.
Yeah.
If they even made an inkling of like, we're gonna make him 16, we're gonna give him a love interest, like, no, these are kids.
Yeah.
I want them to be kids.
Yep.
So
Interesting. All right, well, let's do the 60-second, which
God.
Maria took the most notes, so you're going to do. If you're new to this podcast, we do this thing where we attempt to explain the entire plot summary of a book in 60 seconds or less. This week, Maria's going to do Ender's Game.
I'm
60
so lost
seconds
already.
or less. You have to... There's a lot of confusing stuff in this book.
Wait, can I just like make one of my forever points?
Sure.
Why is it always grown men writing about little boys?
I do want to talk about that later on, actually, because you're right. This one especially, we'll talk about it. All right, here we go, Maria, in
I'm
3,
so lost already.
2, 1, go.
Okay, we live in a society where aliens have attacked before, so there has been an invasion. So we have what they're trying to find is the next commander for this next big invasion, which is going to be a third one. They go through all these children, go through a lot of tests. We learn our first kid is Ender. He is a third of a family. You're only supposed to have 2 max. He's getting tested heavily, and they realize he has a lot of potential to be the next commander. He gets sent to battle school. In battle school, he learns how to do battle in space. And then from there, he's graduated into commander school, and you realize the entire time all these fake battles that he's been doing
36.
in this fantasy game that they have him in are actually true battles he's been having with the alien race. And at the end, he finds out he not only was pretending to kill these things, he actually destroyed an entire alien race at the end. Then he decides that he still has one little egg left, and he's like,
15.
I feel bad that I killed off everybody, so I'm going to hold this until the right time. He travels with his sister in time and space, and they just live happily ever after.
All right, good enough. There's a lot,
I missed a lot in there.
which
Press
is
that.
it's okay. We can.
It's too much.
This one's too hard to do. I think in 60 seconds, genuinely.
It's too much.
Yeah. So the first thing that confused me was his name was Andrew, but they kept calling him Ender.
Ender,
and it
yeah.
kept going back and forth.
Because his sister couldn't. The way I thought about it was, you know, when you have a younger sibling and they can't say your name.
Yeah.
Like my family's Maria Isabel, my name, right? But Leslie would call me Isabel growing up.
Yeah.
I think it's like that. You can't say Andrew, say Ender.
Right. Okay. I like that. That is actually.
And then it's cute because it's the ending of things.
Yeah. So Ender is like 6 years old. It starts off in a school. He's getting bullied. He got his monitor taken out, which is like kind of how the government watches you. Is that what it is?
I think it's the military watching him to see if he has the right
Yeah.
mental capacity potential to be
A
in
commander.
battle school and commander.
Yeah.
I thought it was a little confusing.
It was confusing in the book, that's for sure.
I think the movie even was confusing too.
the movie actually kind of helped me understand it a little bit better, to be honest with you. 'cause
Well, you probably had like
Yeah.
an understanding of
Exactly,
what was going
yeah.
on, and then that made it a
it
little bit
like
clearer.
clarified a few things, but I could see how somebody going into that without.
Like I kind of started it, and I was like, "What the because they were like, it looked like they were in like regular life,
yeah, which they
and
were.
I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And then like their kitchen was kind of high tech, and then I was like, "Wait a minute."
yeah. No, they are. They're in like a normal society, but there's a war going on with these. They call them buggers in the
Buggers,
book.
yeah.
In the movie, they call them.
It gave like the Giver vibes a little bit.
Yeah, I've never seen The Giver, but I can see
It's
that.
been years since I read The Giver, so I
I think this
remember
came
it was
first.
like,
I think Ender's Game really did like.
No, The Giver is a very old book too.
I don't. Well, from what I've heard, is that Ender's Game influenced a lot of books. Like, yeah.
Giver was 93.
So I really think Ender's Game really influenced a lot, which is why I wanted to read it in the first place. But they call them buggers.
It's like utopia fiction. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. I can see that. So like the bugger, they play this. Here's what I hated about the book. They say fart way too much. Like, you fart face, and that was like, I was like, okay,
because he didn't want to curse.
But even the older like guys were saying it. And I
No,
was like,
he said
the men.
in the interview or in the
didn't wanna
author's
curse.
note, I guess you can call it, after the book, he said that he knew that kids would read this book.
Okay.
He didn't want any children to learn bad words from his books.
So we went to fart.
So he said dumb things.
Okay, fair enough. It would have been fine if it was just the kids saying it, but
Can
once
you
the
imagine-
adults started saying
Can
it,
we just like talk about this? Can you imagine being such a fucking bigot? Like, I'm reading a little bit about like
Yeah,
what he's done.
garbage.
Being such a fucking piece of shit human being and being like, I don't want them to learn how to say.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yup. I
Like,
wish.
But I hope those gays burn in fucking hell.
I wish I
that is
read-
literally like the two
I know.
tones of this man.
I wish I
Ugh.
looked more into it before I read the book, but it
Yeah,
just
because I
didn't work
normally
out that
I don't
way.
like reading reviews.
Once you told me he was, this is actually how it all came up to me. You told me you listened to the end, and you were like, yeah, he's a Mormon, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know he was a Mormon, so I looked him up. That's when I learned everything. I had already read the book. I was like, I want to do this episode because I've already read it and I want to talk about it. So now that we know, like, he's so garbage, like, I feel shitty even doing this book. But
Not all Mormons are bad, but a lot of bad people are Mormons.
ooh, good quote.
put it
That
on a
was pretty
t-shirt.
Yeah, throw that on a t-shirt. You're right. you're right.
There's been a lot of
I've
a lot of
known
people
really
that,
nice, fine Mormons,
Yeah.
and it's the same with every religion.
yeah. I mean, to me, it's religion.
Yep.
That's the problem, not
Yep.
the religion.
Correct.
I do feel like, and maybe you got, if you'd let me know if you thought the same thing, but reading this before I found out all of that, I saw a lot of these little inklings of religion in it.
Oh, there was tons, and I didn't even know he was a religious dude. And then I
Wow.
started thinking about the book as a whole, and I was like, there's a lot of inklings for a lot of the things that he feels in general. So let's go through the story. He gets his monitor out. The military comes to his house when he's 6 years old. So keep in mind he's a baby, and they're like, we want you to go to this school, Battle Academy,
School.
which is cool.
Dumbest name on the planet.
Battle School is a dumb name, but it was cool that he gets to go to like this school. You had said in your 60 seconds that all of the battles that he was doing when he was at the other school were like real. Only the
commander
last one was the real one.
No, there were others.
The last one was like the one where they actually did it, but before that it was practicing to lead up to it. He didn't know the final battle was the real one.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So he goes to battle school. So during all of this, his brother Peter is like a piece of shit. So he's got a
Psychopath.
sister Valentine and a brother Peter. This was not in the movie, this little side plot, which it didn't really need to. It explained the war at the end, but they took that out of the movie too. So they literally took the side plot.
So they got none of the political
Nothing.
intrigue happening on the side, which is
None.
like so poignant to me.
Yeah.
That this came out in the 70s.
Yes.
Of these two kids influencing social media essentially.
Yep.
To for political like
That was interesting.
power. And I'm
I
like,
thought that
is
was
this Russia?
Yeah. And it was about Russia and like these,
Yeah.
So it's interesting that they just took that side plot out because that plot played a lot in the end because Peter basically ruled the earth. And in the end it was like there was a war happening, which is why Ender went back to space and was like, I'm gonna live here, and that's when he discovered the egg, whatever. So it was interesting how the movie just like took that out completely, and then I realized it kind of didn't need it, I guess. But
That's what's so great about movies. They really know how to like take away
Trim the
things
fat.
that like don't matter.
Yeah.
And you think like as a book reader, this is why people hate book readers that like always say like the book was better than the movie. There is a way to trim fat on a story that you still allows the story to be told.
I agree.
Without all of the extraneous details that like make it beautiful in the book, but like and give it more like depth in the book, but you don't need that.
Yeah,
because
for the movie.
And I think what people miss about that is like movies give you something else, right? Like audio, video.
Visual.
Those are other factors that play into a story and,
Yeah.
and give you a sense of feeling in different ways, where books only have descriptions and like
Exactly.
moments and like things
They
that
have to tie
they
it.
don't have as much
Yeah.
like sensory things to give you emotional reactions. So
they
I
also
think that
only have words to tie things together.
Yeah.
And I think the book did need that side plot. It did need the war at the end in order to tie everything together, whereas the movie just didn't need it because they found a way to transition that felt fine, and you just didn't need it. But so throughout the movie, throughout Battle Academy, I think we need to talk about there was multiple people that he had encounters with, Bozo, and I forget the other kid's name.
Stilson.
Yeah, that he didn't like and was bullied. He was bullied a lot all the time.
He was bullied because he was he was so good.
He was so good.
And he was singled out from the beginning by the adults as like, this kid is the best of the best.
And they isolated him. They wouldn't bring the letters to him. They literally isolated. They like made him into a mini soldier, and like he got bullied for it, and he ended up like punching a kid and then like kicking him and like getting into fights. In the book, you find out later on that he actually killed those two kids. In the movie,
that was the kid that was the bigger kid. That fucking thing that he took out in the movie, it was like spiky.
Yeah.
And I was like, how did that not fucking impale him in like the
I don't remember that.
It was like a spiky horn thing that he just like,
oh, he picked something up off of a thing and like smashed it. That was the beginning of the movie with
Yeah,
the
Stilson.
bully. Yeah, that was
but
Stilson.
it was crazy because that thing should have like impaled that guy's like
yeah.
head.
Yeah, that didn't happen in the book.
And like he didn't even have a mark on him. I was like, that doesn't seem right.
So in the book, they don't tell him.
It was vicious too.
Yeah, in the book they don't tell him, but we see the point of view of the like professors or the battle people, and they are talking about how like they're trying to keep it under wraps that those two kids died. So he did kill them in the book, whereas in the movie they're like
that's the
up.
thing is they don't want to show that type of. It's the same way. I don't want to bring up Harry Potter, but I am.
Yep.
It's the same reason why Harry didn't kill Voldemort. You have a different reaction when you see it happen versus when you read it.
That's true.
You just fucking do.
Yep.
And everyone was so pissed that you didn't see this like crazy like thing in Harry Potter, and it's a very similar thing. Like if you see the main character kill somebody, that's staying with you for the rest of the movie.
That's true. Yeah. So, and they didn't tell him because he was already having these issues where he thought he was too evil.
He didn't want to be his brother.
He didn't want to be his brother. He didn't want to be Peter. That was like the whole thing that was driving him in all of this, which wasn't as apparent in the movie.
He's able to be violent, but he doesn't want to be violent.
Exactly. And then throughout all of this in Battle Academy, he's playing a game on his little like iPad essentially.
Yeah, they call it like a deck.
Yeah, and while he's
desk. They call it desk.
Weird.
So it's way more important in the book because that's how the ending.
It felt like it wasn't important in the movie.
The
and
movie
it was
made no sense how he finds
why
the egg
they
in the
did
end.
it.
Makes no sense compared. You're gonna be like, wait, what? That I didn't know that was a thing. So that game that he's playing is he plays as like a little mouse and he's like going through or whatever. He's basically like the game makes itself, and he is facing these challenges. Like the first one is this troll that he has to get through, and he jumps into its eye. Like he has to make these decisions to figure out how to get to the next place. He gets hung up on this one thing where there's this mirror, and he keeps seeing Peter in the mirror, and he can't get past it. And all the battle people who watch it, like the professors are watching him play the game, they're like, why can't he get past it? And they're like, let's bring him to Valentine. Maybe she can be like, you're
Let's
not
have
your
his
brother,
sister, yeah.
right? So in the book, they go back, they bring him back to Earth. He talks to Valentine. She's like, you're not Peter, you're not Peter. He goes back and he ends up going into the mirror and like beating that or whatever. And he sees this mountain. And when he sees this mountain, he thinks he's like, that's the end of the game. It is what it is. So that's like this side thing, right? We don't really know why that's important until the end. In the movie, you never find out why it's important. So there's the battles are happening.
Which is crazy how they just drop the ball like that sometimes.
That
in
part
movies.
needed to be in the movie, hands down, had to be.
Like like it's weird to me, but this is why I think that movie didn't do well.
No, it didn't. That's
Because I think like
yeah.
this type of shit happens where they like
It felt pointless.
drop the ball on
Yeah.
like certain things and things don't close up. That's why like things like the Hunger Games and Harry Potter and all these movies, like it's amazing that they got popular, because think of how many of these movies we've seen that just never catch on. And
Exactly.
it's little things like that like leave people feeling like they don't have a full movie.
That's true. And so after battle school, he's getting older now. What is he, 12 when they say you're going to commander school or whatever it's called?
I think he's 10.
10? Yeah, he's young. So now
He's skipping things really quickly. And mainly because
I guess we should talk about the game. The actual game that they're like the alien, the bugger thing that they're doing.
the battles.
Yeah,
you mean?
what the battles are.
So in battle school, basically all these kids, and they're mainly boys. There's rarely any females.
Like
and this
one.
Is,
Tell me you
line-
hate women without telling me
Yeah,
you hate women.
exactly.
So
He even says it's
he
not in
says
their
it-
nature in the book.
I got mad at this. Basically said evolution has gone against women,
Yep.
so they're not able to. I'm like, what the
He
fuck are you
wrote that
saying?
in the book.
What the fuck are you saying?
Yeah. Yep. That was bad.
Anyway,
So the
Like,
game.
I could see why people wouldn't read this book just
Yeah.
like
yeah.
strictly out of.
Spite.
well, I didn't think that was gonna be in there.
No, we didn't know.
I thought there'd be more girls.
I had no fucking clue what this was even about.
And also, it's just I just, to me it's stupid because they say, I mean, his point was later on that he made him so young because the point of this was to make Ender be as manipulated as possible.
Sure.
He has to be molded in their image how they want it to be, and the only way you can mold him is from basically birth.
Which makes sense.
So you can't tell me evolution didn't work for females if you're doing it since age 6.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. But the games...
Nature versus nurture.
Yeah, the games themselves, though, is like they're in space. So there's this one like orbit room, essentially, where there's no gravity.
Yeah.
And you don't know which way's up, which way's down, which way's left, which way's right? And you have to like go to these little stars. And basically you have to beat your enemy by getting through the enemy
It's
gate.
like a big laser tag game.
Yeah, it looks like fun. Like I would have
It
liked to
seems
have done it. Yeah. And then when you get shot, your like limb freezes in
You're
place.
freeze, yeah.
So they're strategic. It's more strategy than anything, I think.
And eventually they make Ender his own commander.
Yep.
They give him all the misfits, people he doesn't actually. He at one point he had trained everybody, random people in his own like side games, and everyone loved Ender. Ender was like rising through the ranks. He was one of the favorites.
Those battles were so dope in the book. They were not in the movie at all. They showed one battle.
There's
with
too
him,
many of them in the book,
which
that's the
makes
problem.
sense. But they showed one battle of him as the leader, and
Yeah.
it was not enough character development at all. Because in the book it was like he's becoming this amazing leader, and you do not get that in the movie.
Yeah, in the book he's, I mean,
He just seemed like a kid.
Yeah, it was not well done at all.
So essentially, what happens in the book is, once he becomes commander, they start putting him in battle after battle after battle, 7 days straight,
all the time,
no stopping, and which is not normal. And he wins. Him and his team win they're undefeated.
Yep.
Which makes it more of a target on his back from others being like, who's this kid? Why does this kid get to have everything? Yada, yada, yada.
That's when Bozo
tries to come in and hurt him in the bathrooms. Like,
soaks himself up.
Yeah, he's right. Like when you get like Vaseline when you're gonna fight.
Yeah.
So he comes in to like try to hurt him. And Ender hits him so hard that he describes it that his eyes just like stay open, and like, even if he just kicked him, he doesn't feel anything. I'm like, oh, that kid's dead.
In the movie, he falls on the ground and cracks his head, which that didn't happen in the book, but I feel visually that's probably how you have to show it.
I guess. Yeah, you don't want to see a kid murder another kid.
Yeah.
So yeah, after that point, because we have to keep under wraps that Bozo has been murdered, they send him straight to commander school. And at commander school, he's learning all these things. He's going through all these scenarios, and they bring in his old team, his old like squad, I guess, to help him with these battle practices.
And his teacher is that Buzz Lightyear dude who like was
Buzz
the
Lightyear.
He was the guy that like
Graph.
Yeah, he.
Oh no, Mazer Rackham.
Mazer Rackham.
Mazer Rackham is the last known human who's actually defeated the
love
buggers.
That name, Mazer Rackham. That's a good name.
And so he's been alive because he's been traveling in space and relativity. And so, is that what the word relativity?
Yeah.
So while it's interstellar, when you're up there, time works differently than on Earth. So he's still alive, and so he's training Ender for this. And you good over there?
Yeah. Oh, my burp.
So fast forward, it's finally this big final battle. Ender thinks it's a game still, but at the end when he wins, everyone's crying around him. He's just like, what happened? He's like, you did it, kid.
He actually
You
was
actually
in
just
battle.
wiped out an entire society. And
Yeah, so his team were like controlling everything. I didn't get this in the book until I saw the movie. I was like, how are people dying if they're in front of a screen? But he was controlling ships that had real people in it. So I didn't connect that for some reason until I saw the movie, and I was like, oh, that's why there's higher stakes. So yeah, he thought he was in a game, but in reality, thousands of people of his own people were dying. But they didn't care because he beat the buggers, and he felt cheated because he didn't know why we were even battling the buggers to begin with. Like nobody really had told him if they were bad or not, and we didn't know. So this is
there
where
a second book in this?
No.
yes,
Is there?
yes,
Really?
it
No,
goes.
yes.
It
I
goes-
didn't know that.
It goes into a whole.
All right, well,
other,
let's do the end.
let me
first.
find it.
So, Erica, this is where that game was important, is in the end. So he is pissed that he got cheated and, killed them for real. goes into his dorm. He's like really, really upset, crying, whatever, the whole nine. Another kid comes with him. It wasn't the girl. In the movie, that him and the girl go out and like, so him and this like kid, he's like exploring whatever. He was like, I don't know, something feels wrong. And he's looking out his window and he sees like this mountain. He's like, why does that look so familiar? So when he goes outside, he sees the mountain. It was the exact same mountain that was in that game he was playing, the handheld game. And he was like, why is that there when I was playing it in the game? As it turns out, the buggers, like the aliens, were actually communicating with him through the game, and that's how it was becoming like, that's how he was doing all these challenges, because they could connect to him mentally. And it's like a different form, which I was fine with, because if we do meet an alien race, I think if anything, this might be the way that it happens. Like they can only communicate mentally, they have technology that we've never heard of, whatever. So that didn't bother me. So when he gets to the mountain, that's how he finds this queen bee, and he has a conversation with her in his mind, and she's basically like, we just want to live. Like, we're just trying to colonize.
Yeah, we didn't mean to kill you guys.
We didn't mean to kill you guys, because we were trying to figure out who you were, and you attacked us, so we attacked you. That's when we realized that the bees are good. He takes them, and he's going to go like make a colony for them somewhere, essentially. But Peter, his brother, has started a war.
Aliens being bees.
Yeah, they're buggers. They're bugs. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That was.
It
weird.
reminded me of.
They weren't bees. They were like.
No, it reminded me of what's that book we read that's not like oh my god, what's it called? The one with the thing is freezing over. Remember, the world's freezing and they go out into the alien race.
Winterworld?
That's the one.
Yeah.
Winterworld. It reminds me of that, because the things in Winterworld were like a hive mentality.
Yeah. That didn't bother me. In the book, they weren't just bees. Like in the movie, it was an actual bee that they show at the end. Yeah. So in the
it was a bee.
That was ridiculous. Yeah. In the movie, they were described as insect-like creatures because they had a queen and they had hives and stuff.
Yeah. But
in the
they didn't
movie,
really describe what they looked like.
in the movie, they took that and ran with it. They said, "Say less." You said queen. We're making him a bee, so they made it a bee.
All right.
So I agree, that was ridiculous. But in the book, they didn't really describe what it was.
So then essentially it makes it for book 2, which is Speaker of the Dead.
I did not know there was a book 2.
Yeah.
Definitely not reading that.
No, he's using
So
go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I just want to say that I found out that he did not make any money off the ticket sales of this movie.
Really?
Good.
Good.
Essentially, you know how at the end of this book, he's basically the spokesperson for the buggers, the true story of what happened with them.
Oh.
That makes him Speaker of the Dead, and I think that's what's gonna relate into book 2.
How many books are there?
I think it's only 2.
See, part of me did think it was a trilogy, but I wasn't sure at all, to be honest with you.
What do you think about the
He's
casting?
71. He's 71.
What do you think about what?
The
The casting of the movie.
It wasn't great. The main character was a little, I don't know. It wasn't that good. That's what I'm gonna say. And I thought the Bozo character, whatever his name was like that was weird, because he's supposed to be a little bit bigger, and he looks so little.
I mean, like Ben Kingsley, Harrison Ford, and Viola Davis.
They were great. I liked them as
That's a fucking all-star cast right there.
Yeah, I liked them as the commanders, but the kid I was like kind of iffy on. But he did a good job. He did what he was meant to do, I guess. I don't know. I guess I can't complain.
I just think like I find it so weird that so many fantasies are like older men juxtaposed to young men.
I agree. I thought the like kid stuff was a little bit weird. The whole
It's just like why are we doing 8-year? Like I understand like training them through
That's
that
the reason
point,
why.
Mm-hmm.
and I get that, but then it's like, can we do the story when he's like 18?
I didn't mention the most important part.
What?
At the end, when he saves the bee, so he doesn't actually bring them to go get colonized. He actually writes a book. And he writes a book and he sends it back to Earth. It becomes the best-selling book and it becomes their Bible. They use the word Bible. It becomes their Bible about how nature is amazing and like
Mormonism.
100%. I can't believe this is so important.
Is the Book of
because
Mormon.
we go to when he's like 70 years old in space and he hasn't colonized those bees, the insects yet, the buggers.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, there is like it goes.
That is the Book of Mormon.
It does. It goes all the way to like the 70. Yes, and then there's a book about Peter, his brother, that's out there as the prophet, and he, is like the. I totally forgot about that. So I texted Marie after that. I was like, "What the fuck happened at the end? Why did it become this whole entire thing for religion?" That was the whole point of the book, was that they made a Bible.
They have a Book of Mormon.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. 100%. I don't know anything about Mormonism or what the Book of Mormon is, But
It's that.
Is it really? So in the end, I knew there was like religious undertone, but once Maria told me that she listened to the last part, said he was religious, and I looked him up, I was so disappointed. And then at the same time, I said, no, this makes sense. And I started thinking back to what he said about women in the book. There was like these moments where I felt there was like tension between like two boys, but that was nipped in the butt very quickly.
I also felt too, like, so in the beginning of the book, they mentioned how a lot of religion is not a thing. They've removed a lot of religions.
Oh, that's right.
You're not supposed to. The dad was Catholic and Christian or whatever.
He was Polish, and then the mom.
And it was frowned upon to be praying over the kids and like all these things. So it was, to me, I was like, okay, so in this society, religion does not exist.
Yeah.
But then it turned towards the end, and I was like,
but that's the point of it. That religion.
That religion.
Exist,
yeah.
And then
they create their
indoctrinated.
Own.
Yeah.
That girl Haley that I follow on YouTube is pretty religious, so I understand now why she loved the book so much. I'm like, okay, so maybe there is something here.
I thought so. I gave this a 3.75.
I did too. Same.
I think I enjoyed the story for what it was. At some point, some points of it I was bored. Some points of it I was frustrated.
Yep.
I thought there was too many battles, and then listening to the author's note at the end put everything into perspective.
Yeah.
This started off as a short story where it began as he is already in commander school.
Oh.
So what he did was add the backstory to make this a full-length novel.
Got it.
And added that part because he knew he wanted book 2. So he's like, how do I tie in this to the book 2 thing?
Interesting.
The way it began was his brother was in the author's brother was in Vietnam War. And so his brother's experience is what sort of inspired this. He thought, well, what happens if this was in space?
Interesting.
And what happens if like instead of them being 18, what if it's like a 6-year-old? Like what if you get this from childhood? And yeah.
Interesting. I don't know. I also gave it the same rating. I thought the story was interesting. If you thought that was too many battles, you would hate The Iron Prince, which is my favorite book of all time.
Well, the thing was about
so many battles, but
about
they were really
this battle
good.
thing is that they were all the same.
Yeah, no, this is way different, and more adult. So I don't know. I enjoyed it for what it was. I like the way that it inspired other works. Hate that the author is who he is. I don't recommend this book. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
If you haven't read it by now, just don't listen to this podcast. You've figured everything out that you need to know. The movie, you can watch that if you want. If he's not making any money off of it, great.
It's on HBO Max.
Yeah, it's on HBO Max. So if you want to watch it, go for it. It wasn't that good.
It was. I would go as far to say it was bad.
It was pretty bad. It was bad.
I would say it was bad.
Yeah, it was definitely bad.
I think movie-wise, I think where it failed is like, I think it sounds like they did some of it right in terms of like what to cut, what not to cut. But
they made it not religious.
Sometimes books do not adapt well to movies.
Yeah.
And that is just like you will hear me say this time and time again. Mm-hmm. Some books just do not translate well.
I agree.
And they just don't. And like, I don't know who the fucking Hollywood is picking some of these ones. They don't get it right.
Like
they don't get it right most of the time.
Like ACOTAR probably shouldn't be into a TV show.
No.
But here we are.
It shouldn't be.
But yeah, that's Ender's Game. If you have any questions, comments, I would love to hear what your thoughts are. If you knew about this whole author thing ahead of time, I'm curious to hear what you have to say about that. But just go over to our Instagram. That's books_n_Betches, BETCHES. Click the link tree in our description. You'll find our Patreon if you want to become a Patreon member. A lot of fun things over there. You could be on the podcast. That's exciting. And we post all of our outtakes there, which is super cool. We have a YouTube channel. Subscribe to that. Man, we are just growing and growing, and more exciting things are coming. So we love you all, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Don't buy this book.
Don't buy this book.
Don't buy this book.